Hey folks, this week we're not having our normal intro music because I wanted to give a little precursor to this episode. This was recorded before everything happened in the Ukraine. Please keep that in mind. Thank you. Good evening, vampires and replicants, and welcome to the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. On tonight's episode, we have Mr. Tim McKaylee of post-industrial electronic project Zuneg. You'll have to forgive me this week, as my son, the little typhoid Mary that he is, has brought home a nice cold for me from his new school. So bear with me, folks. Zuneg came to be as an outlet for Tim's feelings on being a combat veteran, a father, sexuality, and the dichotomy of being a soldier who also creates protest music. Citing post-everything giants ISIS and Neurosis as major touchstones, Tim takes much of the intensity from these groups without sounding metallic, weaving dark tendrils of electronic soundscapes. Tim invokes a leering sense of dread into what, at its core, is protest music, dialed to 11. I really enjoyed this interview. It was very frank. It wasn't forced, very conversational, and we really got to the bottom of some things together, and I hope you all enjoy it. I give to you Tim of Zuneg on the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast.
Stuff like this where they have their phone going off. I'm like, that is so fucking rude. Someone's giving you the time of day and you're like, your phone's going off.
Well, life happens and it's understandable.
Yep.
But now that we're rolling, I have your permission to record video, audio, all that jazz.
Yes.
And state your name for the record.
My name's Tim McKaylee.
So, Tim, when I first ran across you, and, I go into a lot of this stuff blind with artists who are unsigned, independent, what have you. You end up finding a lot of artists who are not all that, impressive. Whereas you, on the other hand, you have this fully realized multi-movement, almost operatic, like trip hop industrial, anti-war. This has so many textures. Can you give us a little bit of a background on, not only the project, but on this body of work?
Well, first of all, I love your background. I see ISIS Celestial on there. And
oh, yeah.
I have that tower right there.
Oh my God, yes. Fucking, yeah, incredible.
And then I have the Neurosis, I see Neurosis.
Through Silver and Blood right there?
Through Silver and Blood, yep. Whenever they do the drum stuff when they're live. So, I guess a lot of my influence comes from those guys. So, I've always wanted to do metal or something post, but I'm not metal, right? And I think that there's not a voice out there for people that have been through war and that disagree with it. Like, I would go to war again, right? Just because there's other Marines out there on the battlefield. But that doesn't mean I agree with it, right? I'm not a pacifist at all.
No, but you're a soldier.
Right. So I wanted to make music that talks about, like, you hear about like bands like Sabaton or just bands that do a lot of stuff that had, like, even when I was growing up with Metallica 1, what was that all about? It was about a guy in, I think it was the Korean War, Johnny.
World War One.
Yeah, World War One. Yep. And so I grew up with that and a lot of metal, like, from that era as well. And it talked about war, but none of the musicians had been through it. So when I come to it, it's like, when I first heard ISIS and I heard the Red Sea, Celestial, Oceanic, I didn't like it at all. Right. Wow. Yeah, I loved Ministry and I loved Godflesh at the time, but I did not like ISIS. I thought it sounded like a train wreck. But then I began to like the train wreck. And now I want to create a train wreck, but I've always wanted to make scenes, like music scenes for movies. So you'll notice how like my song Not Enough, which is what I call the Vampire Replicant saga, that is a 10-minute song. I wanted to do a 10-minute song, and it's 10 minutes exactly. But I mixed like a vampire, like the typo negative type vampire, falling in love with a replicant from Blade Runner. And then in the end, it has an anti-war robot. Like the robots are starting the war in the apocalypse. So a lot of my themes are apocalyptic. Like I'm coming out with a new song that deals with, it's the second part of the Vampire Replicant saga, is I'm making songs like that, and I'm making sagas rather than albums, because I grew up with Pink Floyd, and I think actually Pink Floyd is like, if a lot of our type of music like the post stuff comes from Pink Floyd,
which it does.
Yeah, the thematic in Nine Inch Nails, like Pretty Hate Machine was, I think, inspired by The Wall as well.
For sure. Yeah.
Right. So I kind of want to do that, but I don't want to have the constraints of an album. So what I have is I have 5 sagas. I have the Vampire Replicant saga, which is just a story that involves futuristic Blade Runner robots that fall in love with a vampire, right? And then they go to war, which is a war. It's a metaphor for my war. So it becomes my anti-war theme. And then it actually has a lot to do with the immortal and the robotic, or the living. So that's a lot of what has to do with, but I have 4 other sagas as well. So with the sagas, they all have to do with death, love, and missing someone. So I had my son's mother die 2 years ago. And like the mother-son saga is just about, like, 2 years before she died, I wrote a song called Little Black Suit, She Will Die. Now, if you see the She Will Die, you're like, oh, that totally sounds like, it was just an acoustic song I wrote. But that's totally like the from that typo negative, like, I love my, but she died, right?
Yeah, yeah.
My uncle, no, you know what I mean? So like there's a lot of those elements in my music where it's like, I predicted her death actually, in that, and I predicted like buying my son a suit, and then she listened to that song and started crying, and then she ended up staying sober for a few more months before, like, she ended up passing. But like that was the prediction of her death that I gave to her in a song form, and then I also like wrote a song after that, and I have another song coming out this year about in that saga. So I have all these different sagas, 5 different sagas, where I can keep adding to them as time goes on, and they don't stop. They're not static like an album would be. They're dynamic. Yeah. And since we live in like a TikTok world where everything is like 15-second bursts, or like we live in a playlist world as well. Yeah. Like that's what I'm catering to, is like, well, maybe not put out an album, but put out a saga and just keep it in playlist form in all the different platforms.
Well, think of it in hip hop terms too. I mean, most of your SoundCloud based newer hip hop artists, nobody's putting out albums anymore. They're putting out a song or 3 songs. You know, it's nothing. The long form album is an antiquated format. It's certainly of, you know, an era where they call my generation boomers now, and my parents were actually baby boomers, not me. We're Generation X. But, you know, the like guys in their 40s, we were album babies still. We still listen to full albums, and that's not the modern, you know, take on music release or you know, format for that matter. Like if you're going to dream up like the way you did it, I think is really, it bridges the gap between that old school
mentality.
And that new school where, you know, you're going to release a song or 2. Like, so you just did it in chunks, these sagas, as you called them. And it makes it more cinematic, and it makes it more digestible for the more disposable generation, that is the generation that my daughter is in and that my son is going to be in. Well, he's young.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like, that's their era.
Oh, totally. Yeah, like, but I also don't like steer clear of like making long songs. I don't like you watch all these music marketing videos on YouTube, and they're like, "Oh, keep your songs under 3 minutes, do all this," and I don't like any boundaries. So if a song sounds good at 2 minutes, then I'll put it out there. If it sounds good at 10 minutes, I'll put it out there.
Right.
If I had a 12-minute song, I'd do it because of the bands that you have in your background right there that influence me to do stuff like that.
Oh yeah, look at Killing Joke right here. I mean, even they're at their most poppy, they had 5-minute songs, 6-minute songs.
Yeah. Plus, my songs are telling a story, and you never like cut a story short.
No, absolutely not. Especially, you know, it's not as if you're in the Ramones or something where you're just verse, chorus, verse out. This is more liminal. You know, you're kind of like you're allowing the story to dictate the song structure, whereas someone like the Ramones or the Clash, they're going to, even though their music is topical, it's verse, chorus, verse, out.
Yep.
You know, it's formulaic. There's no formula here. It's just you're catering the music to the greater theme.
And yes, and the type of music I want to hear.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Without being metal. Because I want to share what death is really like to people and what war is really like to people, because war is downtime. It's not just all glory and guts like they show in the movies. There's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of digging dirt. There's a lot of fun times. But there's also when the shit hits the fan, it's hell on earth. It is hell on earth. So that's what my music is. It's a mix. Like sometimes it gets really, I don't think it's heavy because I listen to death metal like you and I.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But I think it's heavy to like my mother.
Sure.
But it'd be perfect. I think so. I just try to write music for movies. It's not like I want to be in a movie. I would love to be for my music to be in movies, but I want that long apocalyptic scene to take place with my song in the background. So I think about that.
It's very much like The Doors, The End, over that scene in Apocalypse Now.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I liken it to. You know, where like, you know, you just see the napalm going off in the jungle, and you know the opening strains of The End starting by The Doors, and it's that same kind of vibe.
Great movie.
Oh my God, fantastic music, fantastic movie. But like, you know, you could see where Joy Division picked up where The Doors left off. You could see where Killing Joke did. You could see where Neurosis did.
And Tears for Fears.
And Tears for Fears. Very much so, yes.
Like, I also love a lot of pop music, like Tears for Fears, and a lot of the 80s, like Madonna. I grew up on Michael Jackson,
sure.
You know, because I'm in my 40s, so it's like a lot of that synth. Like, there's a lot of good music in the 80s, like George Michael. So, like, for my first album, I spent 6 months just training my voice to be like get back to its classical trained stuff, and that's all the classical stuff I did with an acoustic in a cabin. And then this stuff, I haven't trained anything. It's more raspy. I wanted more of the Tom Waits. Like, if I could get raspy, then
what's he building in there?
That's a good. What is that off? What's he built?
Mule Variations.
Yes. Doesn't that have she gave her a dime store watch and Hold On. That's a great album. He's a favorite of mine.
Yeah, mine too. He was a favorite of my late father's.
Oh, really?
Yeah, my dad loved his early work, and years ago, Dad, Agent Orange, actually.
Oh wow, was he in Nam?
Nam, yeah.
Okay. Well, I think with our war, the Iraq and the Afghanistan war, like in the last year, a bunch of Marines and their wives that were on the ground, we try to get their interpreters out for 2 weeks during the summer, and I try to protest and have like rallies and shit. It didn't go too well because no one really cares anymore. But we try to get these refugees back in our country, like, because for me, I feel like our government is totally fucked over these people over in the Middle East. So
yeah, they have.
Yeah, so like part of my war healing is trying to like come to terms with like the fact that like our enemy over there is not really our enemy. It's just an enemy of our government.
Yeah,
and that's what I think happened with World War II vets, with Vietnam vets, and just with these guys just fight just like we do, and they're just trying to live and survive.
Well, and World War II is a great example. I mean, during Christmas time,
yeah,
the war,
World War One,
yeah, or World War One, shit would stop, and
Yep.
they would cross lines and be like, "We have this. Do you want some of this?" Like,
yeah,
everybody would sit down and be humans again. But
Yep.
then when Christmas was over, we're shooting at each other once more. And, you know, like, do you or I really care if someone's Muslim or not? We don't. It doesn't matter. It has no bearing on our reality. But, you know, the political ideologues, that's who that's who that war belongs to. That's who all war belongs to. And unfortunately, it's people like you that pay that price.
Yeah, and the friends that we lost over there.
Yeah.
And actually, we have an anniversary date, October 30th every year, where we mourn the loss of 8 Marines that we lost in Iraq that day. So like on that day, I have a song coming out for one of the mothers of the sons. So so when I went in the studio for that song, like last year, like in 2021, I was talking to my producer. I was like, I can't do this. I can't record this. Like, he's like, you'll get through it. You'll get through it. And like the whole day was just hell. So some people, when they're going through the studio, like it's a great time. Like for me, it's like, it's not fun at all. I'm dealing with all that pain and that trauma that I've dealt with my therapist and with family and stuff. And like when those days come, like it's sometimes my son's seen me cry. Like, I'm not afraid of crying anymore, just when it comes out around that time of year, like because I was in the battle of Fallujah as well.
Mm.
So it's just like it's really hard for us Marines during that time. So when I'm in the studio, it fucking sucks. You know what it reminds me of? I don't know if you've heard of this artist. His name is Hayden.
Yeah, Hayden.
Everything I Long For. Hayden, he on the album Everything I Long For, he wrote that song about those kids that were dropped in the water by their mom. And it's like by the time this is over, and it's from the perception of those kids was they're dying because their mom is murdering them, bringing them in the water. So when I heard Hayden in that album, I'm like, wow, this guy's like, I mean, this was heavier than Elliott Smith at the time.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm like,
and what's heavier than Elliott Smith?
Right. Right. So when I heard Hayden, I was like, and then I heard like Steve Von Till and DeRosa, you know, all like his solo stuff, but like that's more dark, like ambient stuff.
Yeah.
But Hayden's stuff was dealing with real death.
Mm-hmm.
And he would take real life scenarios and then put it in his music. So that's my influence, is like that shock. I don't know if it's shockwave, but it's just like, it's kind of like shocking when you hear like, oh, this is really about this, right? Losing you.
It's about something that actually happened.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like I don't take death lightly. And I realize that everybody that listens has experienced death too. So it's like, it's not from a condescending standpoint, because everybody in life has to experience death of someone else. So why not write about it and sing about it?
It's relatable, but I think you're uniquely qualified to quantify it, because you have a perspective on mortality that most people who haven't served in the U.S. military, especially during wartime, would have.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
And like, unfortunately, you get to carry the PTSD and the and everything else that comes with that. You know, which makes you uniquely qualified to create and execute the music that you do, and it makes it all the more palpable and you know, human to me.
Right.
You know, which is why, like, when I sat down and just absorbed everything, which I did, I just took it all in as one journey. And well, I'm uniquely qualified to do something like that, as my musical tastes have you know, have pushed me in that direction. And you know, it's really it's a cinematic experience, and it's an intellectual experience. And you know, from just a music fan standpoint, it's very, very reminiscent of something that Neurosis would do, but even more so, like Killing Joke and Joy Division.
Yeah, that's a great compliment. I did grow up on Joy Division as well, and Bajas and Sisters of Mercy. Like, so
yeah, we're goths. I mean, we're goths.
Yeah. So I defined it as post-Gothic trip-hop, because post-Gothic is, I'm in the scene. I think our scene, by the way, right now is probably the strongest it's been, especially in Omaha.
Yeah. I mean, worldwide, yes, but
right. I can't stand when dudes are like, "Oh, our scene back in the day was so much better." I'm like, well, then fucking make it good now, right? And I know a lot of guys that are really making it good in our scene, just in Omaha and then Minneapolis, and there's so much stuff going on all across our nation just because of all the stuff people have gone through in the last 2 years. And this is a perfect time for the scene just to get huge again. And it is, actually.
Yeah, I mean, I came from a time period in the scene where, you know, like, it was Sick of It All, Gorilla Biscuits, Warzone, Agnostic Front, and it was all very much like the juxtaposition between, you know, like skate rock and straight edge hardcore. And it was a ton of fun. It was awesome being on the East Coast, being just this close to New York City and just this close to Philly.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Where you can go like an hour.
Were you around Madball then?
Oh, yes.
The Madball hardcore stuff.
Yes, and I loved it all. I enjoyed it all. I mean, I'm an East Coast hardcore kid at heart. That's where I came from. But that's just actively. There was, you know, I had that Christian Death. I had that Sisters of Mercy. I had Lycia, who they're like my family, those people. And on the other end with the D-beat stuff, early Neurosis, Amoebics, to Nine Inch Nails, to Ministry, to Skinny Puppy. Like I had all of that.
Yep.
Because that time period, like I'm almost 46 years old. I mean, that was all happening right then and there.
I'm 44.
Yeah. We're in the same age bracket. I mean, that's what was happening. And if you were weird enough to like one, you were weird enough to like the other. Let's face it.
Right.
You know, what I guess I don't, what I don't understand about this newer generation, and what I actually really envy about this new generation, is genre means nothing to them. Nothing. Whereas when I was 15, 14, 13 years old.
Yeah, we're naming off genres like that.
Yeah, but if you were in one, you couldn't admit to liking the others, even if you really did, because I'm a part of this. I'm a skinhead, so I can't like this. Or I'm a straight edge kid and a skater, so I can't like this.
I'm a sharp, so I can't do this.
Yeah, I was a sharp. Like that's my past. And, you know, do you love Cockspar? Sir, yes, sir. but do you like Skinny Puppy? No, that's weird. I don't like that. But at home, you're listening to Too Dark Park and you're loving the shit out of it.
Yeah, I grew up in Bakersfield, California.
Oh, so you had.
And in Omaha as well. So I was like part of both. So like I saw Public Enemy open, or Rage Against the Machine open up for Public Enemy and Far Side.
Mm-hmm.
So like I saw Korn when they were a local band in Bakersfield. I saw the Vandals. I hung around gutter punks because I was homeless in high school.
Mm-hmm.
My dad was just a shitbag, but it was I grew up around the punk scene in California, and it just taught me all about punk rock, and I hate punk rock. I really hate it. Like I can't, like I like the Misfits, like I like the trendy stuff, but like when it comes to Crass and stuff like that, and like I'm like, I can't listen to it. It just doesn't sound that great to me. But ISIS and Neurosis and the post-hardcore, like all that stuff that came out in '99 and after was amazing. I think that was the underground movement that really was amazing after.
Well, you know, Neurosis was a gutter punk band, right? Before.
That was way back in the late '80s, right?
Early '80s.
Okay. Yeah.
Neurosis were on Lookout Records with Green Day, and they were like the Crass and like Amoebics and you know, they were gutter punks. They were D beat like gutter punk shit. And you know, I understand what you're saying. I get it. The only reason I think I like it and appreciate it as much as I do is because it was my first scene.
Yeah.
But what I really aligned with is what you're talking about. Like when even with the New York hardcore stuff that I really loved, when New York hardcore, I think, became, as much as I loved it, when it became important to me from a musician standpoint, is when Quicksand came out. You know, everybody left Gorilla Biscuits and, you know, Warzone, and they started making, like, you know, they started listening to the Smiths and Slowdive more. You know what I mean? And it got really melodic, and it got darker. So you had bands like Orange 9mm, you had bands like Quicksand, you had bands like Handsome, and then you go to the West Coast and you get Neurosis, and like it just.
See, I was more of I like Rollins band more than Black Flag.
Well, that makes sense. It does, because Rollins band is more, as much as I love Black Flag, Rollins band is more jazzy.
Yeah.
It's more musically literate, and it's more of the post-hardcore vein.
Yeah, the beginning of a lot of that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, so like I align with I like Massive Attack, Portishead, Fever Ray.
Yeah.
Like a lot of that stuff is really like resonates with me. That's why when I say post-gothic, like I say that is because in our scene, no matter what scene you're in, there's always Billy, stop. In our scene, no matter what scene you're in, there's always gothic people that say you have to be dark, you can't be Christian, you can't be Muslim, you have to be atheist, right?
Yeah.
So I think
goofy.
Right. I think the post-gothic thing is just like it's all post that. Like you don't have to be that, but you can still be dark inside. Like I want to see a regular person just that you would never suspect that likes Neurosis or ISIS. Right. And you would never tell by the way they dress. That's what's so much in our scene, like how they identify is just by the way they dress or anything like that. So I'm like, screw that, or their religion or lack of religion. It's like anybody can like this stuff. This is 2022.
But what I get a really big kick out of is like Lycia, big example. You know, they come from the like 80s. You know, they started in the 80s. Early 90s is when, you know, the first album came out. But Mike and Tara, they're married, and the two of them in the group, they're both.
I've never heard them, actually.
You never heard Lycia? You of all people would love Lycia.
Yeah.
And they're both Christian.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And they were like much loved and lauded by the goth scene, even though they're not a true goth band, in my opinion. They're way more post-punk. But you know, like they're a normal married couple. They're Tara's dyed-in-the-wool Christian. They're just, they don't adhere to the strictures of what one would consider the norm for that scene.
Yep.
And I don't really care to worry about whatever the norm is for whatever scene, because that's just, I mean, 90% of the guys I grew up with were straight edge.
Yeah.
You know, and that was the religion.
Yeah, Minor Threat and fucking.
Yeah, and I love the music. I love the message.
I do too.
But it was never my thing.
Yep.
I just liked the music, and I liked skating and playing in hardcore bands. That was my vibe.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I don't want to join anybody's cult. I just want to play music and hang out with like-minded people.
Yeah, I think our country is to that point, and I think a lot of the world is to the point where you can be a Christian or a Muslim or a Hindu or an atheist and still go to these shows that we're talking about.
Of
like
course
you don't have to be like we're not in the Tipper Gore days, right? Like speaking of ministry, right? My first parental advisory was ministry in case you didn't feel like showing up live.
Yeah.
I think it was 89 or 90.
Yeah.
So that was my first tape that had the parental advisory sticker. I was so proud of that. But it had the cutout thing because they're like, cut this out so your parents don't see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think we're past that whole the Christian rights stuff. And
well, I think that's still a thing.
Oh yeah.
But it's not quite as, you know, like, and the thing, what's real funny about that, Tipper Gore, you know, the whole parental advisory sticker, the PMRC, they weren't even right wing. They were the left.
Oh yeah. Yep. And who's canceling who right now? The left is canceling the left.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the real bitch, because, you know, like if you talked to me 25 years ago, I would have told you like, oh yeah, you know, I'm a left winger. I'm this, I'm that. I can't align with anybody right now. I just can't.
No, I can't either.
I can't.
Actually, most of my left friends, I'm like, I'm farther left than you on most things. And some of my right friends, I'm like, I could be farther libertarian than you. And like, because now I don't identify with any party. So it's like freeing.
Well, there's no party left to identify with.
No.
Let's get down to the business of reality.
No, I agree. I totally agree.
Like what I watched the Democrats do to Bernie Sanders, was enough for me to completely despise them, because Hillary Clinton did not win. What was it, like 8 years ago now? Yeah, she didn't win. He did.
Yep. Yeah.
And they just picked her because it was her turn.
I know.
What are you doing?
Yep. So I'm a huge Jimmy Dore fan. Listen to that guy.
Yeah.
Like, he's very far left, and he's my hero now. He taught me all about anti-war and how both parties are basically like, I think we're going to go to war right now.
Pardon the interruption, folks, but once again, this was recorded before Russia had invaded the Ukraine. Yeah, we're going to go to war with Russia.
Yes. Yeah, and it's very sad.
And
they don't want it.
That's not going to end up well for us.
And it won't end up well for a lot of those people over there in Ukraine or Russia.
No.
Because the regular guy like you and me does not want this war.
No, we don't. What do we gain from it?
Nothing.
Not a fucking thing. Not a fucking thing. And I'm this guy sitting here just like you with a small child. And, you know, like, is this what we want our kids to inherit? A war with a country that has nothing to lose? Because Russia has nothing to lose.
Nope.
You know, and they've been, well, not they, because it's not the Russian people. It's the Kremlin.
Just like our government. It's all our elites.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't matter what party they want war. They've been our country has been out of war for 9 months now, or how many months? Oh, that's too long.
Yeah, the war machine's not making enough money.
Right. We need to ramp it up again.
And who do they send? Not their kids.
Yep.
Just like, you know, Creedence Clearwater Revival said in the late 60s, I ain't no senator's son. It's going to be motherfuckers like you.
Actually, funny you say that. My son, my song Doctor's Son is my answer to that song Fortunate Son.
Oh,
so
no
rather
kidding.
than point the senator as the villain, I point a rock star as a villain. The rock star of a doctor.
It's all the same thing at this point, though.
Right, because it's just another elite person that doesn't have to go to war, but I'm going, and a bunch of us low-income people are going.
Yeah, they like to send, you know, and you can't even call it the boys anymore because the ladies going to war too. And they send these people who are just backed against a wall for the most part, with very few exceptions, into combat situations in order to get out of situations at home that are almost no better than combat situations.
Yep, I agree.
You know, so like, is America still eating her young? Yes.
Yep.
So can I in any good conscience align myself with any party? No. There's no need. I'm too leftist for that, and I'm too pragmatic for that on the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah, most people turn more conservative the older they get. The older I get, the farther left I get, and I get farther left than the current Democrat Party.
Well, yeah, because that's just that.
They're just the conservative party in Washington.
Pretty much. There's either the conservatives or the other conservatives.
Yep.
Because, you know, you're either an Amazon conservative or you're a Fox News conservative.
Yep. Yep. You're drinking the Kool-Aid somewhere. I haven't watched the news in years, and it's been great.
It helps.
Yep. So one more thing. I started a side project called the Doom Choir.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah.
And it's like it's more of a sex positive, like you'll see ads like the Doom Choir is sex, like
is sex, yeah.
So everything on Zuneg's side is more like apocalyptic and just dark. The Doom Choir is still dark, but it's more trance and just like nightlife stuff. But it's still I don't know what to call it. It's just where I want to throw all my other side stuff. So I'm doing a music video in about a month about for perfection is the enemy of beauty. We're shooting in about a month and a half. So
that's what you had the meeting about yesterday.
Yep. I can't wait.
That's awesome.
And so the drummer is going to be in his tidy whities underwear.
But as far as influences on that end of it, that's more probably your Daft Punk and, you know, the EDM stuff.
Yeah. I'd like to DJ it eventually, but like I don't know anybody that would like if you go to like Rufus Del Sol or like some Skrillex, any of that stuff, like I don't know if anybody would ever dance to my shit. It's just like, but it is long and trancy. So,
well, I mean, it's not danceable.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it has those elements of. Oh boy, I'd love to come up with a great example that's, you know, applicable at this point. But I mean, we already kind of went over it all. Like, you know, everything you've already mentioned is kind of applies to it. Like we're all into trip hop, we're all into like 80s dance music.
Yep.
As much as we are into like industrial and hardcore. I mean, what's not to like?
Right. By the way, speaking of albums,
mm-hmm.
The last really, really good album, I want to hear your take too. Like mine was Holy Fawn. Have you listened to them?
No, I haven't.
Dude,
I've heard of, I haven't heard.
I'm going to send you Holy Fawn. They are like, it changed the, like Fever Ray, I actually got a Fever Ray tattoo.
I love Fever Ray.
Yeah,
I love Fever Ray.
After Massive Attack and Portishead, I think there was quite a gap, right, for trip hop. And I think Fever Ray, when she came in after The Knife, like, I think that album just totally changed things. For me, it did anyways.
See, like I still had that sweet spot of Soul Coughing to Bjork.
Oh, yeah, I totally remember that.
Dude, I still love everything Mike Doughty does. He just came out with a new project. Oh shit, I wish I could remember the name of it right now. I know I have the record behind me, but it's like his reimagining of the Soul Coughing days.
Yep. God, I used to have that on CD.
Oh God, I love all of this. I saw, you remember basically like the godfathers of emo hardcore, Sunny Day Real Estate.
Yeah, I didn't listen to them actually.
Well, they were fantastic, but Sunny Day.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that did, but I didn't.
Sunny Day Real Estate went on tour with Soul Coughing, and it was like a fucking mind blower, because you had this like the best, like, because Sunny Day Real Estate, they were emotional hardcore, but they were like prog rock, and that's why half of that band became half of the Foo Fighters, because they were just that literate as musicians. But like, you have something like that opening up for this jazzy trip hop group.
Yeah.
You know, like, and that was the beauty of the 90s. But Mike Doughty from Soul Coughing, he came out with a new record this year that is like a reimagining of Soul Coughing, but it also has that like Sunny Day Real Estate, like prog bent to it, like the other side of his persona, because he was into hardcore and shit too, that guy. And he found a way to like merge it all and do it with one other guy and just put a record out. So that's one to put on your radar, if I could remember the name of the group.
I know we'll be talking a lot after this. Mike Patton, of course, though.
Mike Patton is like,
he's a king. I think we could go on and on about him. Just Mr. Bungle and California. That whole album.
Mr. Bungle, from their demo to their
I didn't listen to their demo.
Really? You didn't?
I haven't.
They just reissued it. Well, no, they just reimagined it and re-recorded it with Scott Ian from Anthrax.
Wow.
Yeah, what is it? The Revenge of something about the Easter Bunny.
Wow.
And it's like a cross between thrash, funk, and death metal. And it's from like the mid 90s, or the mid 80s, I should say. So like, you're talking about, you know, they loved Exodus, Anthrax, Slayer, to Possessed, and Chuck Schuldinger's Death.
Yeah, Death.
And just throw that all into a blender. That was where they were coming from. And then it just got weirder from there. And I mean, it's Mike Patton. Mike Patton he's pretty much the only person from that time period who could get away with doing what he did vocally.
Yeah.
I mean, Adult Themes for Voice by Mike Patton.
I know, that was so weird.
Yep.
That was like his Uma Guma.
It was his Uma Guma.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm a huge, like, Pink Floyd is my favorite. Like, I still, not many 60, 70 bands can I listen to. Oh, here we go.
I had to find it. Mike Doughty's from Soul Coughing, his new group.
Okay.
Ghost of Room.
Okay, I'll have to check it out.
It's really good. I just had to pull it out because I couldn't remember. But anyway, Mike Patton, he just his score work alone for the Place Beyond the Pines. He's an explorer. He reaches, you know, and he doesn't care how he's perceived. He does operas.
Yep. That's why he moved to Italy and married that woman.
And learned to speak Italian and learned to compose opera. And he's fantastically good at it. like preternaturally good at it. Like that's a talent. And he's just a shitty California punk dude who just happened to be born with this tremendous voice.
Right.
And that's when, like, you know, you can't paint yourself into a box. That guy's a perfect example. You can't just go out there and be like, this is what I'm capable of, so this is all I'm going to do.
I'm going to do more than that.
You should, as well, anyone should. You should push yourself. You should stretch yourself, which is why, like, you know, I stumble upon you. You're not just putting out like a demo or whatever. Here's an epic in 5 movements.
Oh, thank you.
What the fuck? you don't see that every day.
Right.
You know?
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I really do. It's been tremendous meeting you as well online. I think I met you through advertising and marketing that I'm doing. Yeah. Because I'm running ads, because there's 60,000 songs that get uploaded to Spotify a day, right? Mm-hmm. And as a musician, you're never going to get heard unless you go out and play all the fucking time, which I have a son. Yeah. And I'm not touring right now, you know, until I start making money right on it. It has to become, you know what I mean? Yeah. Especially with just raising my son by myself. So, but yeah, that's the only way I can think of getting heard, is just by marketing it.
And you seem to be doing a damn good job of it, because I found it. Yeah. And, you know, I come across it, and like I said, you have to do your due diligence before you even form an opinion. Yeah. So I look it over, and in theory, it sounds really expansive. So then I hit play. Once I hit play, then I'm like, wait the fuck a minute. I'm gonna get in touch with this guy. I like this.
So the recording studio in Omaha is Rainbow Recording Studio. So the Nils and Tim Nils owns the place. The cool thing about it is, if you've heard of like the old Pink Floyd reverb, like where they have like on my Instagram page, you'll see that reverb spinning to one of my Doom Choir songs. They have this. Nils basically goes around to all these places around the nation, and has been for 30 years, and collects old, like he'll collect stuff from Elvis time period, like the preamps. And so when you go into their recording studio, you can get any old analog stuff you want, from the Patsy Cline days to Elvis, to all the mics that they used back in those days, back to the old reverb that Pink Floyd used. It's amazing the stuff we play around with in there. So I bring all my electronic music with all my synths. I bring it into the studio, and then I basically say, okay, now let's make this give it more beef. And we put it through all that old analog stuff, and it makes it sound that way.
Well, analog is always going to sound warmer and more full to the human ear, because we don't hear in digital.
Yeah, so I spent a lot of money just on the recording studio in Omaha just to get that sound that I want, because I've seen so many bands, even local, that just they don't spend that amount of money on that money on the studio that they could, and their album sounds like dog shit, but it's like, but they're talented as fuck, right? Yeah. And their music is great. But if you don't spend that money, if you're gonna create 8 songs in a row and put it on an album, at least spend the money on invest in the studio. Yeah. I mean, everybody else is investing in the studio.
Everyone with money. But, right. I mean, even with if you're limited financially.
Well, I was poor, like American poor, not. I've been all around the world, so I have to be careful about that because I've been to other countries that are developing.
Yeah.
So our kind of like
white boy poor.
Minimum wage jobs. Like I would still save up to do something like this.
Yeah.
If I couldn't do it right, I would still save up that money. Right. That's always been like, if I were to take out a woman for a date, right, when I'm making minimum wage, I'm still paying for dinner.
Sure.
Right. Even when I'm making good money or I'm making no money, I might not take her out as much. But I'll still pay for it.
Sure. Yeah. Well, you have to still be a gentleman. I mean, come on.
Right. That's something missing in our society, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think that died with us.
Our generation?
Kind of. I don't know anyone younger that, kind of adheres to the same, chivalrous.
Yeah, the chivalry part.
Bent, which I know that's outdated. But that's how I scored my wife, who is way the fuck out of my league. So.
Well, yeah, you got to protect the women in the pit. Right?
You do. You have.
Yeah. Just get them behind you so you can go like this,
Chivalry shouldn't completely die. You should still open a door, pull out a chair, and treat a woman with respect. That's not.
I totally agree.
That's not,
it's not a
condescending. It's not condescending.
Yeah.
It's actually humbling yourself.
I agree.
If you don't have the ability to humble yourself to a woman, maybe you shouldn't be with a woman.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not trying to be divisive. It's just, sometimes you just have to humble yourself.
Yep. And that's back to the conversation about the studio, is like, I spend my hard-earned money just to make the music I do.
Yeah.
And to advertise and market it, to try to get it out to people like you that like stuff like this. And I want it to sound good, and I always want it to sound good.
Have you gotten a lot of feedback?
I just started marketing like within the last month, honestly. And that's how you found me. So, and then before that, it was like trauma time, where I had 2 years of just dealing with Melina's death, my ex-wife and my son's mother. So like up until 2021, like she died in late 2019, then COVID happened, and that's trauma for everybody, right?
Yeah.
And then 2021 happened, and then I started like going in the studio recording all these songs. So,
well, again, COVID was trauma for everyone except me. I'll be honest. COVID was wonderful for me, but
how's that?
Well, my son was 1 when he was he just turned 1. We had his birthday party. 2 days later, COVID hits.
Oh, the lockdowns.
So the lockdowns start hitting and everything. So from the ages of 1 to almost 3, I am home more than I work. And as a plumber, that's a big deal. So.
Oh, yeah.
How can I bitch?
Yep.
I got to be home with my son that almost whole time. Yep. But people not in that situation, I can completely see how that can be brutal. I lucked out.
Oh, yeah.
I won some sort of psychic lottery.
Yeah, I'm not complaining so much about the COVID stuff, but it was hard because of the death. Because we just went through it.
Yeah, the deaths and everything. I mean,
the COVID for my son and I was not that hard. It was just, but I'm recognizing that other people did not. Yeah, it was hard for a lot of people.
And how old's your son?
He's 8.
He's 8.
Yep.
So you're single parenting it right now.
Yep. Working full time, single parenting, and doing it and I'm like, I work in tech, so I do everything from home, and then I automate things. So naturally, I'm actually programming Jack and Jill right now. They're my two robots that are gonna. I'm trying to. I'm getting ready to play live in around May time frame for all this new stuff. I have a whole set, and I hired a studio engineer to put all my music into my MPC because I don't have time to put it in my MPC right now because I'm writing music, going to the studio next week. You know, I have a video shoot next month I'm planning for, and I'm making more music than I could put into my live stuff, right? So this gentleman is putting it in my MPC, and then while he's doing that, I'm programming it MIDI notes to DMX that light up my robots, and then the robots will talk, and they're just mannequins that I'm lighting with LEDs through DMX and MIDI. So just for a good live live performance.
What was the inspiration for that? Because this aspect of not only your music but your live show is very intriguing. I know of one other person from the
Author
hardcore.
and Punisher?
What's that?
Are you talking about Author and Punisher?
I love Author and Punisher, but no, I'm talking about Compressor Head. It is the guitarist from the band, the punk band No Means No. They were on what do you call it? They were on Jello Biafra from the Dead Kennedys. They were on his record label, No Means No. And when they broke up, this guitarist, instead of putting together a band, he built robots that are powered by compressors.
Oh, okay.
And they play actual instruments.
Yeah, I'm not doing that.
I know you're not. I know you're not doing that, but it brought it to mind. But like even the robotic voices you put into the music and everything, I mean, it's reminiscent of, you know, this. You're like the puppet master of this automated.
Well, I think, you know, we're from we were born in the 70s, right? So like Blade Runner and Terminator.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always thinking about Skynet.
Yeah.
So, and I do think that robots will take over eventually. I just don't know when. I think we'll probably destroy ourselves before then. So
yeah, but you always think of, you know, Nexus 1, like.
So the Turing test, Alan Turing, that test that Deckard gives to the replicant, that's the Turing test. I think about that. So like I'm thinking about like in between my songs, I'm talking to these robots and they're being fed vocals through my MPC. It's just like, so I'm programming all this right now, and while this other gentleman is like programming all my songs from the studio into it. So he's doing one layer of it, I'm doing the other layer. So we're trying to automate the whole set. So it's going to take 2 months at least.
Now, once you've gotten this completely down, how much physical labor takes place to get a stage setup like that in place?
Well, my rack it's just this big box. I saw this electronic musician that was using an Octatrack. And then I was like, what are you using? Like, what's in that little toolbox that you're using? He's like, oh, it's an Octatrack. It plays samples and stuff. Because it was a bass player. His wife was a bass player, and he was playing guitar, and they were singing. And so I'm like, and that's how my most popular song Is Yours. I just like created on an MPC all the sounds for it. I just played to it with my electric guitar. And I'm like, oh, I can do this. So then I'm just like, I create all the orchestration in the background with my guitar and then with my vocals, and it's easy to play.
But as far as the you know, the robotic end of it, how labor intensive is that, or is it pretty simple?
The mannequins don't weigh anything.
Yeah.
No, it's So I do most of my home's automated. I write code in Python for a living. I do all sorts of things like I write code for the cloud. That's my job. So like the automation through the MPC with MIDI and the DMX and the lighting, like all that stuff just makes sense to me. Like all the protocols that we use for it. So I'm just like, how do I make the robot's mouth light move or like turn on red? So I just figure out how to do that. I just create an automation track.
Okay. So
it is very labor. It takes a lot of time. Don't get me wrong. I'm making it sound real simple, but it does take a lot of time and research.
So when you're a plumber like me, it's still magic.
Yeah.
I've an English degree and I didn't want to teach, so I just deferred to my father's trade, which I'd grown up doing, which was plumbing. So I can get a boiler or a water heater running in your home like that.
So for example, here's
or I could correct your diction and syntax, but I cannot tell you what you're doing.
See, I'm horrible at English, but like my workflow was horrible for making music because I had like this big table with all these synths on it, and I'm like, I have this guitar, and I'm like, and then I have to sit down on this little chair with this laptop. I'm like, I need this all in one thing. So I spent 6 months and built this 8-foot tall synth rack with a computer on it and drum machines and all this. It's on my Doom Choir page actually.
Mm-hmm.
But I built that just so I could have workflow. So when I think about things, I don't think about like, oh, I just need to do this. I'm like, how can I make this easier so like 10 years down the road I can still use it? That's how I think.
So bearing all that in mind, and I know I actually I'm not sure if you've ever listened to any of my other episodes. Usually my first question, but I'm putting it towards the end because I didn't get to it because I was too busy worrying about everything else going on with you know, the way you do things.
How much we have in common.
With how much we have in common, and you know how much like if we went to go get a DNA test, we probably date back together in Ireland somewhere.
Right.
What is it that terrifies you the most on an existential level? That's usually my first question in a podcast, but I'm putting it back here because I didn't need a conversation starter. So
I guess the lack of God.
The lack of God. That's pretty much what everyone in their own way sort of says.
Because it's the lack of love.
Yeah.
Most people view God as like an oppressive figure because of the way religions. Well, even people are seeing because of the way I don't blame them either because a lot of religions are oppressive. So
if you want to view them that way, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, especially towards sexuality and stuff, and I totally get why people are come from it that way. But the way I understand God is just like as love, and that's pretty simple.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I mean, even if you look at it through the lens of Christianity, you know, biblically speaking, there isn't really any precedent for, you know, homophobia because the only time homosexuality comes up biblically has to do with rape. And that's Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yep.
When everyone's going crazy. You know, and that has to do with rape. That has zero to
Jesus hung out with.
Yeah, he hung out with prostitutes,
hookers,
and yeah, he hung out with hookers, lepers, and you know, like Christ was.
So the people that don't understand that about like how to treat people, if they don't understand that about Jesus, they don't get it
at all.
Judging people on their sex or sexuality is wrong.
It's not Christian like.
Exactly.
Truly. I mean,
he literally was hanging around people that were having sex for money.
and the thing is, people want to claim, oh, well, I'm Christian, so I can't abide by that. Well, then have fun being Christian, but you're not being Christ-like.
Right.
At all. And as a Christian, you're supposed to strive to be Christ-like.
Yep.
To be Christ-like, you should be cool with hanging out with lepers and prostitutes and drug addicts and everybody else that nobody else wants to fuck with.
Exactly. Like our scene.
Like our scene. Just like our scene.
It's
now,
so true.
You could
like, I'd rather be hanging around people in the scene that are all of all sorts of religions than people that are just like, I have to be this one religion all the time.
No, I mean, like when I started going to shows in the late 80s, well, not quite late, but close to late 80s, you know, a lot of my friends were Hare Krishnas. A lot of my friends were, you know, into the new agey stuff, which was de rigueur of the like 80s, early 90s. You had it all. But Krishna especially was a big deal with the hardcore scene. And I had no beef with any of it because it all kind of like amounted to the same thing.
Right.
For the most part, you know, and I didn't see the harm. I still don't see the harm. Where I see the harm is people who align themselves with a certain sect of the Christian church, but do not adhere to the actual teachings of the figurehead of said Christian church.
Right.
You know, I grew up Catholic and we're very repressive.
Yeah, I'm still Catholic.
I'm still Catholic too. But if I were to buy into the stock and trade Catholic Church, current Pope aside, because he's kind of a great dude, but you know, the strictures of the church are very, very repressive. Very like, okay, we do not agree with, you know, let's take into consideration abortion.
Yep.
We don't agree with abortion. But how does a church have like as a church as a group of men have any right to tell a woman what to do with them damn selves?
Yep.
We don't have a place. We don't have a dog in that fight. Not one.
Right.
I don't like the idea of babies being aborted, but it's not my place to tell anybody what to do. It's just not.
Yeah, I can't judge.
I can't. It's not in me. It's not in me.
At all.
Now, if it were my kid, I'd be bummed. And that's right. An understatement.
Right.
But I've never been put in that position either.
Yeah. I mean, my mother took away my Slayer record when I was
that happened to me. That happened to me too, but it wasn't just Slayer, it was Possessed. It was, you know, Napalm Death.
I had a Decade of Aggression and like
I lost
Seasons in the Abyss.
Yeah, well, there was before that, but I mean, I lost Napalm Death, Scum. I lost the first NWA record. I lost a lot of stuff in that wash. But you know, even my mother, who was very Catholic by proxy, was also, you know, a hippie who went to Woodstock. So there was that too. So that I guess maybe that dichotomy rubbed off on me.
Did you know that God Hates Us All came out on 9/11?
Yeah, I did. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And that is
a tremendous album, by the way.
That was the last really good Slayer record.
I agree.
Like, really good.
It was amazing.
I have nothing against the rest of them, but that was the last one that had the punk rock in it to the point where it
was just still fucking loud
and dangerous.
Yes, very. Like they were pushing against something at the time, and I don't know what it was. It came out on the right day.
It did.
And it was just a powerful record.
true since the dawn of time, compelled to live your empty lives. Or your sheltered lives. I'm sorry.
Yep.
Compelled to live your sheltered lives.
I despise this fucking place.
Exactly. It just the vehement hatred of every convention on planet Earth.
Yep.
And there was nothing contrived about it either. It was very simple. It was very, very plain. Like, this is where I stand. Fuck you if you don't like it.
Are you into cattle decapitation then too?
I know cattle decapitation because two of those guys were in the band The Locust, who my old band used to tour with. So yeah, I know.
Their newest album is fucking amazing. God,
fucking beautiful.
Oh.
Like, talk about animal rights music brought to its ultimate.
I did not expect it. I never really listened to them that much, and then I heard that, and I was like, "Oh, why have I not been?" I've heard like there's some bands you just like you see the name and you're like, "I'll never listen to that."
Yeah, because it sounds goofy, but
right.
I mean, what they do is very reminiscent of the impetus of grindcore, because grindcore started in almost like they were brutal as fuck, like Napalm Death, Scum, and the first Carcass record.
Yep.
They were animal rights records. They were hippies. They were fucking like hippies.
Yeah.
They were punk rock hippies, and they were making, allegorical music about human beings being butchered because they were against animals being butchered. Same thing with Cannibal Corpse. Chris Barnes from Cannibal Corpse was a vegan. Like, he was an animal rights activist.
Well, Earth Crisis were those guys.
Well, oh my God, no, yeah, Earth Crisis.
Yeah.
Raid, like the whole vegan metal thing. Like,
yep. Remember Zao?
I love Zao.
Oh my God. The Funeral of God is a huge inspiration. That fucking album is just amazing. Front to back.
Well, Zao they were like almost that they started off with like, more towards the vegan metal thing, but
yeah,
only an album or two later, they were more in line with Neurosis.
Yeah, they sounded more like Dillinger Escape Plan, like earlier stuff.
Yeah.
And then they went into the whole, like, the Funeral of God was just totally, just kind of psychedelic in a way.
Zao, Norma Jean, I like all that stuff.
Norma Jean was good.
Norma Jean actually got better and better as they went.
Yeah.
And, they informed bands like Every Time I Die, even though they weren't, Every Time I Die were not a Christian band by any stretch. Then, like, that's where they took.
Because Every Time I died.
Well, they just died for the last time because
the last time. Okay, I keep hearing like every band member is like, "This is how we broke up." I'm like, "No, this is how we broke up." I'm like, "God, how many times are you guys gonna die?" Every time I die.
And they're so good. And
they're amazing.
It's so sad to see them go, but like the guitar player and the singer are brothers, and they can't even stand each other anymore. That's a sin.
That's too bad.
That is too bad, because I have 5 brothers and sisters, and they're all younger than me, so I probably have more of a stake in the game than the rest of them. But like, if one of them had a beef with me, it would probably fucking kill me.
Yeah. Well, we'll never see a reunion from Every Time I Die.
I guess not. This shit just went down, and it went down in real time.
Yeah, and they're blasting all their drama to everybody. We're like, Jesus.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like, how do you do that to yourselves? Wow, just take a 5-year break like most bands do. Come on, man.
I know, and then come back and everybody loves you.
Yeah, and no one's the wiser.
No, they'll never know. Like, I wonder what happened to ISIS. I don't know. I don't want to know.
Aaron Turner wanted to do something else. Those guys all like each other.
Yeah.
They all like each other. I went
to that show, the Cave-In.
Mm-hmm.
show in Los Angeles.
Yep.
For Caleb.
Yep.
And ISIS played Old Man Gloom. It was fucking amazing.
Oh, so good. So fucking good.
I flew to Los Angeles for that fucking show and stayed there one night just to see that show.
You would be crazy not to. If I went on the opposite coast, I'd have done the same fucking thing.
Yep.
But you know, those guys, they're still good.
Yeah.
They're still good.
So, in Fallujah, I had the Hydra head pin.
Yeah. Yes.
On my helmet. And then I saw it was Jesu and ISIS playing. I saw them down in Lawrence, I think it was, Kansas. And I went up to Aaron Turner. I'm like, hey, dude. Hey, man. I wore the Hydra head logo or the pin the whole time I was in combat. I just want to tell you that got me through a lot of shit. And he was like, really, man? I'm like, yeah.
He must have liked that, though. I mean,
yeah, he's a cool dude.
Yeah, he really, I can tell you from experience, he's a really great guy.
Yeah.
But I think what I really wanted to mine into with you a little more, if you don't mind, is you'd spoken about, you know, the things you were involved in with, you know, the Marine wives and the getting interpreters out of Afghanistan. What were the mechanics of that?
So there was when that happened, there was we had Marine. So okay, I had a staff sergeant that had an interpreter that he was in Afghanistan with. So I went to Iraq with this staff sergeant, right? I got out of the Marine Corps in 2006. Then he went on to Afghanistan. Then his interpreter was in Afghanistan with him, saved a bunch of Marines' lives and did a bunch of good stuff for them. And he served our government for a long period of time. This interpreter did. Well, when this Afghanistan stuff kicked off in 2021, I heard about this on Facebook, and I'm like, oh my God, this looks like hell. Like, you know, and then I got in contact, and I was trying to go on LinkedIn, and I was talking to him, and then he was talking, his wife, Kelly, was talking to a lot of people, a lot of wives that had Marines on the ground, like that were bringing people in the airport. Mm-hmm. So I took 2 weeks off of work and just to help out with this. And we were up, like, we only got like 2 or 3 hours of sleep a night. And we're like talking on the phone. We're helping each other through stuff. We were crying because like he had 5 kids, this interpreter did, right? And we're trying to get them to the Kabul airport and trying to get them. I might forget some of this because it was really traumatic for me at the time.
Yeah.
But we're trying to get them to the airport, him and the kids. But every time he would try to bring the kids there, they would keep telling him that we'll rape your children in front of you.
Jesus fucking Christ.
The Taliban would. So he would try to make trips to the airport. So this whole 2 weeks, we're trying to get this guy to the airport, and we're trying to get it through all forms of communication. While Greg and Kelly, my staff sergeant and his wife, were doing that with all the wives and talking, like they were saying, hey, if you see this guy out in the crowd, and that's before the bombing happened, if you see this guy like this out in the crowd, let him in. Like they would have to, like, they'd wear a sign or whatever. And he tried to get in. They threatened to break his legs, all sorts of shit. So while they were doing that, I was trying to run a social media campaign just to bring light to this, because just in Omaha alone, we have 100 Afghan families, right, that have came over since the war, that have families over there. So we were trying, if what we wanted to do would have worked, we could have brought attention to this and brought a lot more people over to the United States that served our country, but we weren't able to, and it was very sad. So we did our best. We got that one interpreter out, and then Greg and Kelly and those folks, after 2 weeks, I couldn't take it anymore. It was triggering all my PTSD from the war.
Sure.
They kept working on it for like a month and a half more, and they saved a lot more interpreters. I just helped with the one, and try to do my best during that 2 weeks.
But these people, like, you know, they although may or may not be Americans, they're in service to our country, correct?
Well, all the Omahans, I'm from Omaha, Nebraska, so there's 100 Afghan families that are Omaha citizens.
Naturalized.
Yeah, naturalized citizens. They came over because of the war, and they still had family over there they were trying to get over, but because of this huge debacle, they were stuck in Afghanistan behind enemy lines.
Jesus,
and they couldn't, a lot of them couldn't get out.
That's
when I try to bring attention to this in Omaha, it was only me and a few people that showed up to this rally that I had. And then I realized that people don't give a shit about anything.
That's a fucking sin, because these people,
I mean, these are Omaha citizens, and no one gives a shit about their families over in Afghanistan. It was just really broke my heart, because I'm like, here's a guy, I served after 9/11. I went over there, did my thing, and then this shit happens, and I didn't plan it. And then I'm trying to help other people, and then no one fucking gives a shit. Not even some of my own family didn't even give a shit. So it's like, what am I supposed to do?
And these people are civil rights heroes. They're civil rights heroes, in my opinion.
They helped a lot of our troops, a lot of our sons and daughters that were over there, and they helped. And they were always it was like basically escaping the Taliban is pretty much all the stories that we cried over. Was pretty much a lot of the stories. I'm a huge World War II buff, but a lot of stories you hear about people trying to escape the Nazis when the Jews were trying to escape the Nazis. The Muslim Afghans that were on the opposite side of the Taliban were pretty much going through the same shit. They were being tortured and killed trying to escape them. It's too bad. And we created it.
Yeah, because we didn't pull the amount of extractions that were within our capacity.
Yeah, I don't even like going into like what went wrong or why it went wrong.
Right.
I just know that it went wrong, and it's fucked up. We were there way too long, and I'm glad we're out finally, but like we're still there way too long. We should have never been there for 20 years.
Yeah, and we shouldn't have allowed an entire armory to be overtaken by the Taliban
there's women and children right now that are fucking getting killed and raped and fucking sold into slavery right now in Afghanistan because of our decisions.
And this is something that, like, on a daily basis, my wife loses her mind over, because my wife is a hardcore humanitarian, and she's like, our government does nothing, and people are being forced to sell their own children into being childhood brides because there's no money.
Yep.
Like, really? Where and we just pulled the plug, and where's our liberal president?
Yep. That's why I think every president is very far right, because when they promise all these things and they don't do anything. Where's our universal health care? Where's all this?
Where's Bernie fucking Sanders? Where is he?
Exactly.
he got fucked and left on the side of the road like a cheap piece of ass.
Yep.
And that guy, like,
during a pandemic, you should be able to sell fucking universal health care to the Congress.
Yeah. How easy would that be?
It'd be, and it was promised to us, and I used to be on the right, and now it's like the older I get, the farther left I get for some reason.
I started out on the left, and the older I get, the farther left I get. I get so far left that the Democrats look like
they're
the Nazis.
Yeah. Yep.
They're the Nazis to me, and they can't sell me on anything less.
Yeah.
They can't. Joe Biden cannot sell me on being this, pinion of virtue and we the people and love of thy neighbor, because I know he's nothing but a rich asshole who is not from Scranton, Pennsylvania, where I'm from.
All of those fuckers in Washington. Like, it's Biden or it's whoever. It's all of them.
It's all the same guy.
Yeah.
Joe Biden won because he's not Donald Trump.
Exactly.
But there's no difference between Joe Biden
Bernie
and Donald Trump.
Beat Trump
over
Hillary.
Oh my God! Like it would have been flawless victory.
Yep.
Mortal Kombat.
Flawless victory.
It would have gone down so quick and easy.
Those are the fucking old school days of gaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Flawless victory.
He'd have gutted his ass, and it would have been simple. And I know people who are on the Republican ticket who would have been fine with that. Fine with it. I know. I would hasten to guess that he beat just in the primary. He beat Hillary by double what they gave him.
They rigged it for him, though.
Well, of course they did. Of course they did. And if anybody watched the documentary that what's his face Michael Moore had made, it's spelled out in black and white.
Yeah.
He'd won it. He had it cinched, like he had it hemmed up, and they just announced her for the fuck of it because she was going to get it no matter what. And he just sat there and was like defeated. He knew.
When I realized that both parties are one was when I just saw like Bush, warmonger, Cheney, warmonger, and then you're like Obama, warmonger.
Yeah.
It's like all should be tried for war crimes.
Yeah.
And then I'm just like, this is all the same shit to me now. Yep.
At least Bush and Cheney, they didn't hide in the bush about who they were.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean? There were opportunities.
Yeah, but Snowden stuff happened during Obama.
Yeah, it did. And the fact that Obama
Julian Assange,
and the fact that Obama didn't pardon them both.
Chelsea Manning was tortured.
Yeah.
During Obama.
Yeah. The fact that this human rights left-wing president didn't give these people just wholesale passes.
One party. They're all one party.
It's all the same shit.
I get sick and tired of people being like, oh, like this party, that party. I'm like, I'm just done with it. That's why I can't even watch the news anymore.
It's all the same, dude. That's what makes your music so prescient in this time, because there's you're not kowtowing to any of it. It's like, no, I'm outside of this. You're writing, even though they're stories. Okay. It's still allegorical.
I'll have to look up that word.
An allegory is.
You mentioned earlier about like being good at English, and I'm like, I'm not good. My friends all make fun of my grammar. Let me automate something.
Well, I mean, and that's where you have me by the balls. But an allegory is basically like you're if something's allegorical of a time or allegorical of a fact, it's you're telling the same thing, but it's in story form. Like I'm trying to think of a really good example.
I get it.
But that's basically it. Like, an allegory for the time, like, saying, writing a group of songs about a demon who in hiding, who's in office, about Obama, that's allegorical about him because he, lied to us all and said he was this equal rights guy, when in all actuality, he was just as bad as the guy before him and the guy before him.
Like the Who said,
we won't get fooled again.
Same as the old boss.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Same dude.
Yep.
Same rules, same game, same stupidity.
Yep.
And you know, the fact that you're writing to this though, and you're not even coming with a band, you're just doing it. You're making your own band.
Yeah. Well, I don't want I see so we have a lot of talent in my city. Mm-hmm. But I also see like a lot of arguments over creativity, and I'm like, I don't want to be stifled by that. So that's why it's just all me, honestly.
Well, yeah, I mean,
I don't want those arguments because I have a vision, and I've tried working with other band members. It's not that I'm not good with working with people. I actually am, like at work. But like with my music, it's like I have a vision and I know exactly what I want. So it's just easier just to do it like the author and Punisher route.
Yeah, I mean, and we have examples of that. We have Trent Reznor, we have author and Punisher. There are very
my God, author and Punisher is the fucking shit.
I mean, not only does this guy like make this music
on stage, and you're like, what the fuck is this guy? It's just amazing. I'm just like, wow.
He has to have a come along to get some of those pieces
I know
of machinery onto the stage. Like, are you fucking kidding me? There's a trolley up on a beam pulling some of this 1,000-pound like metal machinery that he has.
Like, he truly is metal.
He truly is metal. Yeah. I
like,
mean,
all the other guys, he's like, oh, Mastodon, you really aren't metal. I'm metal. They're like, why are you metal? He's like, because I brought a brake lathe and that thing that crushes the Terminator's head at the end of the movie.
Yeah. It's incredible. It's incredible.
I am author Punisher. Hear me roar. He has what is the song? Enter This.
Yeah.
That is an 80s song, if I ever heard one.
It really is.
Off what is it? Mine something. I forgot what it was, but it's fucking and Nile Strength.
Mm-hmm.
Like just that whole the Beastland.
The fact that he's running all this shit through MIDI too is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, I don't.
That's what I'm. So I'm taking all my stuff and doing the same, like everything through MIDI.
Mm-hmm.
Like making MIDI tracks to do that stuff.
Trent Reznor did it. Author and Punisher does it.
Yep.
There's obviously a recurring theme there, and I think Author and Punisher is a little more heavy and modern, but that's just based more on the tactile interaction of these homemade instruments. Like he's
like the I would call him the morphine of electronic music.
He is like the Mark Sandman of industrial music.
Yes.
And Morphine was what the fuck?
I know. Like you hear that as like music that plays before a show, you're like, oh, this is Morphine. They're playing the whole album Cure for Pain. I'm like, and no one knows it, and you're like, you might be the only one in the crowd. You're like, this guy made a fucking tritar for a bass. The saxophone player plays two saxes at once, and the drummer is just badass.
Yeah. It's brilliant beyond all comprehension.
Yeah.
That's why to this day, there's a Mark Sandman. He donated all this money for a fund to put kids through music school.
Oh, really?
The Mark Sandman Fund, yeah.
Neat.
He didn't really have too many people to leave money to when he passed. So he put together this music fund. And
I saw it. I saw them once.
I saw them a couple times.
Oh,
I saw Morphine a couple times, and
I think I saw it with Primus.
Oh, you saw him on the Primus tour?
Yeah, yep. That was amazing. It was either I saw Primus separately or with I don't remember, but it was a great show.
I miss tours like that too. You don't see shit like that anymore. I mean, I saw Public Enemy open up for Sisters of Mercy.
Oh my God.
What?
Wow.
Fuck.
So I saw Rage Against the Machine open up for Public Enemy.
Yeah, that was a great tour, but when Public Enemy
is just amazing.
Public Enemy and Sisters of Mercy.
Fear of the Black Planet, wasn't it?
That was on Fear of a Black Planet.
Okay. Wow.
Because that was when, if I'm not mistaken, I have my Sisters of Mercy up here, but I want to say that was Floodland, 1989. Fear of a Black Planet, Floodland, 89, 90. Yeah. Yes.
That's amazing.
And then right after was Public Enemy, Anthrax, Primus, Young Black Teenagers, and somebody else for the Apocalypse 91 tour, Public Enemy tour.
911 is a joke.
That was Fear of a Black Planet still. Okay. I'm a Public Enemy head.
Okay. I am not.
I am. And that was I
actually just listened to them last month. I was showing my son who they were, but I'm not it's not like a Pink Floyd for me. But
that Bomb Squad production that they had, the Hank Shockley, that whole group of guys who did the Public Enemy production, when they brought the first Public Enemy album, Yo Bum Rush the Show, to Def Jam, and oh god, not Rick Rubin, but the other side of Def Jam, the other guy, the dude from Run DMC's brother, Russell Simmons. When Public Enemy was introduced to Russell Simmons, yes, the only one of the biggest people in music.
Yeah.
When he heard it, he said, "I don't know what this is. Is this black punk rock? It's not music."
Yeah.
And they were listening to it, and Rick Rubin said, "We have to put this out. I know you hate it, but we have to put this out because this is punk rock. Like you said, it's important."
Yep.
So to me, Public Enemy is as punk rock as The Clash, as G.G. Allen, as Sick of It All, as any of it.
So a friend of mine used to have this G.G. Allen VHS tape, and we used to watch it, and he's like, "Oh, my skin is paper," and he'd fucking take razor blades and he'd throwing shit in crowds. I'm like, God, I wish I could be shock rock like this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm thinking about I actually have war footage.
Yeah.
Actual stuff that no one's seen, of dead bodies and shit. But I want to use it as a means to awareness. It's totally shocking when people see this shit. When I got back from the war, it would just revolve on my screensaver, all these dead pictures of dead bodies and shit, at home. And my sister's I was living with my sister in her apartment, and she's like, "Timmy, that is just disgusting." I'm like, "What? This is just normal shit." She's like, why are these dead heads open up and all arms blowing up? I'm like, and then my soon-to-be wife was like, "That is really actually gross. You should really stop having that on your screensaver." And I realized that I was kind of fucked in the head at that point. And then I started getting more therapy.
Tim, I was raised by a guy who had pictures like that, ears, and pictures of people laying in ditches with lye all over them. I can tell you, yes, it was a little weird and shocking in the late 70s, early 80s, seeing these pictures, but at least I knew my dad, man.
Yeah.
It was fucked up. It was fucked up, and my dad was a fucked up guy. He wasn't, maybe he wasn't the most adept father, but that had zero to do with his service in the military. It had more to do with his addictions. But I knew my dad, and I loved my dad. So
Yeah.
I don't care if he was showing me pictures of puppies jumping through hoops and smiling, or pictures of, you know, human ears around his neck. Still my fucking dad. It's how you process what you experienced when you experienced it. And I don't think your son really is catching that from you. I think you got past a lot of that before he came into the world.
I did. Like him and I watch war movies now, and I still like tear up during war movies. And sometimes he's like, "Dad, I want to watch a war movie," and he knows the German and the French and all the Japanese side of the World War II and stuff. We're really into that, so he can explain it at 8 years old. But like, I'm like, I'm like, oh, okay, I can't watch this. I can't watch another war movie this week. You know, so like, it's tiring for me because I experience the emotion of that.
I remember when Platoon came out, even though Platoon is not exactly realistic, except for one or 2 points in the movie, one of which is when Willem Dafoe is running through the rice paddy and they're shooting him down and he's getting shot and going like this.
Yeah.
When that movie came out on VHS and I watched it with my father, and he broke down during that scene, and that was the only scene, you know, and he lost it. And as sad as that was for me to see, I really connected with my dad.
Yeah.
At that point.
I think that's how my son connects to me with war movies and stuff. And it's probably why he's asking to watch them all the time.
Yeah, plus probably. He wants to know.
Wants to learn about the Marine Corps and the Army and us talking shit about the Army.
Well, yeah, he wants to know. He wants to know that side of you, because he wants that. He wants that you know, that closeness. He wants to he wants to get inside your head, and a father-son connection like that is invaluable. So
that's true. That's a good point.
As painful as it can sometimes be.
Well, you are the son of someone that went through a lot in 2 tours in Nam, or a tour in Nam in Korea.
2 tours in Nam, 1 in Korea. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And strangely enough, a lot of people don't know this, but during the 1960s and 70s, the parallel in Korea was a hot zone.
Really?
Yeah, between North and South Korea, it was very much a hot zone. Very much a hot zone.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And the gentleman that was a rock soldier that I had gotten to know when I was a young child, he had seen crazier shit during his 6 or 7 years in combat on the parallel than my father did in Nam and 1 in Korea. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
It was, and it never, the thing is, between the Korean War and right now, it never stopped. The parallel has been fucked from then to now.
Yep.
Scary shit.
We'll never. Eisenhower, was it Eisenhower, the military industrial complex? He was totally right in that speech.
Eisenhower was a prescient speaker. He didn't lie.
Yeah.
He didn't lie. When he spoke about the military industrial complex, he was really calling out the United States and their part in it.
Yes.
You know, and people like you who aren't afraid to sort of present their viewpoint on it. I mean, that's invaluable, because you're not going to believe some, you know, like couch liberal crying about, you know, the prison industrial complex, the military industrial complex, because they grew up in the somewhat lap of luxury, watching CNN or whatever informs them. But or Fox for that matter. Yep. Absolutely. Because they're both as much full of shit as one another.
Exactly.
But you've been to these places, you've seen these things, and you have a real stake and real skin in the game.
Yep.
You know, So to me, that's more of a leftist and more humanitarian take on it.
Yeah. I don't think people care actually about people outside of our country, honestly.
That which is fucked.
Yeah. Most of the world's living on a per capita income of like under $1,000 per year. So
per year. I make that in a week.
Right.
As a plumber.
Yep.
And I bitch about what I make, but I'm doing really well comparatively speaking. So for me to
I think we're very, very privileged in this country. I think we need to start helping other countries.
Yeah.
And stop starting wars with other countries is probably our first thing we should start doing.
Well, what we should start doing first is the fact that there's still a divide between white and black people in this country.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Where are we right now?
Yep.
Where are we right now? We get past that, then we get past the next hurdle, which is, any person of color in this country. We need to just, we need to face the fact that as the not ruling class, but the perceived ruling class in this country for as long as we were, when we just start to say, you know what, we've been fucking things up. So maybe we all need to, get together on this. And I'm really sorry about the past 500 years of stupidity that have occurred here.
Yep.
Once we get past that hurdle, once we finally make amends with people of color, then we can make amends with people outside of this country and, like build a real reciprocity, which is so difficult in this time because so many inhumanities have occurred.
Yeah, I was actually talking to someone about doing a prison show.
That's a great idea.
I'd like to do that because I think I think we need prison reform. I think a lot can be done on that front.
Yeah, because we shouldn't. The prison industrial complex is storage of humans.
Yep.
And they don't care about reforming fucking anybody in there.
Nope.
With the exception of child molesters and rapists, everybody else.
Criminals.
Well, violent criminals can be reformed.
Yeah.
Even rapists probably somewhere in their heart of hearts can be reformed. I think if
my father-in-law, my son's side is a convicted murderer.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's one of the best grandfathers for my son.
Exactly my point.
Yep.
Exactly my point. Unless you're a pedophile, and I'm sure somewhere there's a way to deprogram them too. We just don't have the means to do it. And I have a personal vendetta with them. But even them, there's got to be a way to reach them. But like human violence is inherent.
Yeah, especially like gang violence. It's like,
yeah,
come on.
Yeah, like what the fuck? Why
the
are
government put these people in that position?
Yes, they did. Yes, they did.
To fight each other.
Poverty creates a vacuum.
Horrible situations.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
All over the world, not just in America as well. That's why I think we need prison reform, honestly.
Prison should be a teachable moment.
Yep.
It should be a teachable moment. There should be actual education and reform going on. Therein, like a lot of European countries have it all over us on that front. Look at like Norway, for example. If you murder someone in Norway, you're not going to see more than 10 to 15 years. And you're going to learn something when you're in prison. Like a lot of these guys go away for whatever violent crime they've committed, and they come out with degrees.
Yeah. And
new leases on life. In Norway, if you're a heroin addict, you can go to these, like government run facilities where you can go and get your dope, and you can get clean works, and you're not out robbing people because the stakes aren't that high. You can just go and get it. So what's the likelihood of you getting rehabilitated? It's vast. It's vast.
The countries that have all the drugs legal, like I've just heard, I can't quote it, but they have less heroin deaths.
Yeah.
Compared to us.
They have
exponential less heroin deaths.
Less heroin deaths, less instances of recidivism, because when they finally say, you know what, this is just I'm a mouse on a wheel, I'm just going to go and get help, and the government's going to pay for it, and if it takes 6 months, if it takes a year, I'm going to stay in there that long. And then they're going to put me in a halfway house, and then they're going to get me work, and then I'm going to move onward. That's real change.
Well, the biggest creator of drug addicts in our country is the pharmaceutical industry right now.
Yeah.
I mean, look what they're doing with Oxycontin and all the other drugs.
Well, especially fentanyl right now.
Yep.
Yeah, it's the zombie nation.
Yep.
And they can't wait to get you on a chemical. You know, I was a depressed kid when I was in 1988, 89, and the first thing they wanted to throw me on was, oh God, what was it? Prozac.
Yep.
And that made me a zombie. And then it was Depakote, and then it was this, that, and the other thing. And I didn't feel better until I was on nothing.
I'm the same right now.
Yeah.
The VA wants to give me all these drugs, and I'm like, oh no, thanks. I did that for years. All these anxiety, depression drugs. It's like, okay, it worked for a few years, a decade maybe, but okay, let's back off now.
Yeah, because it's not a solution.
I want to feel something. You know, I do want to feel something. That's the whole point.
Yeah, you don't want to be an automaton.
Like, remember Kids in the Hall, Brain Candy?
Brain Candy, exactly.
That's exactly, like, every time I think about, like, not using antidepressant meds, I think of Brain Candy.
It's prescient. It's everything Aldous Huxley talked about in Brave New World.
Yep.
You know, they're going to anesthetize us into...
Oh, 1984 is one of my favorite books.
Oh, yeah. Orwell? Come on.
Yeah.
He saw this shit coming.
Right.
You know, and I think that's another aspect of your music that is you know, ahead of its time in that fashion. It's talking about that.
Yeah, I'm trying to create landscapes of the apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what I'm trying to do.
And it's the active apocalypse. It's not it's not a speculative apocalypse. It's what's in front of us.
Yeah, it's what's been in front of me, like my whole life. So, like, the apocalypse was our war too. Like, these are all leading up to greater wars and possibly a world war, actually, I think, with China and Russia. So it's like,
is that where you think we're headed right now?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I do too.
I see the right heading us towards China. I see the left heading us towards Russia. So and then you cannot help, if you get into war with one of them, to not be in war with the other.
Yeah, because they're both let's face it, they're not socialists, either of them. Yep. They're not communism. True communism doesn't exist. It hasn't.
Yep.
Not as a nation, not as any nation, but it's what they pretend to be and what they espouse to be. And those ideologies that they paint on under it's the guise of socialism, but in all actuality is tyranny. These tyrannical nations that are together, you know, kind of like sibling nations almost, because Russia and China are very similar nations and just in their ideas. If we go to war with ideas, we can't win.
Yeah.
We can't. You can't go to war with an idea or an ideal, because the ideal does not die with the people.
Yeah, we might not be living under tyranny here. Like, I don't think we are, actually.
No, we're not.
Because we still have music,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we're not getting killed for it. But we still spread tyranny. If you're a Middle Eastern country, you know our tyranny.
Yeah.
So that's how I feel.
I think as free-thinking American people, it's our duty to like espouse empathy.
Yep.
And vote that way. Not vote in a way that leans toward our fear of the other.
Yep.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what happened when Trump got elected. I think that's what happened when Bush got elected twice. I think that's what happened when Biden got elected, because everyone was just the fear wasn't anything other than Trump getting elected again.
Yep. It's all everything is based in this country off an election.
Yeah.
And nothing gets done without an election. It's very sad.
Yeah, because it's very simple to just gauge the will of the people and act upon that. It's
like,
very simple.
Up to the midterms this year, we'll start getting kind of what we want, but they'll just feed it to us just in little tiny increments.
Yeah.
For both the left and the right, but they won't give us all of what we want. They'll just give us a little bit. And that's how they work.
I think kind of in closing, to kind of put a bow on this, what do you think your music offers in that sphere that isn't currently being offered by other musicians? I mean, other than the obvious, because like you come from combat, you come from a mindset that is enlightened by true life or death, like
the Sabaton example. Like, Sabaton is making music about every song's about a different battle or war.
Mm-hmm.
My music's actually about that, and it's real life and real life death and war and pain. Mm-hmm. And I'm not undermining other musicians that haven't gone through that either. I just think that there's not a lot of that out there right now about the war, especially for something that's overtaken our country for 20 years. So I don't think if I have anything different than what you initially said or what I initially said. I just think that is what I have. And all I can do is, like my therapist says, I can never write a happy song. And I'm like, that's a badge of honor amongst my friends.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. But I think conversely, you have the ability to, see a truth that a lot of people who haven't been in the positions you've been in can see.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope I'm releasing 4 singles this year. 2 are in the mother-son saga, and one's in the vampire replica, and the other one's in the war and death saga. And I think it's going to be a real emotional year, honestly, for my music. It's the most painful.
I think if the last 5 are any indication, it's obvious that it's going to be an emotional tour de force. But I think what I want my listeners to take away from all of this is, this isn't just, although it is a work of creativity, this is coming from a very authentic place, and a very informed place, and a place of not desperation at all, a place of almost not academic, but you know what the stakes are.
Yeah, this is not academic at all. Actually, like academics like disgust me. Because I like more of like being amongst the working man, or just the regular infantry or regular artillerymen, right?
Yeah.
It's the man on the ground. Like so I don't look at things like in the academic way. I look at more from the like, if you were in a battle with Satan in the apocalypse with God fighting, like I'm telling from the soldier that's standing right next to God fighting Satan in the apocalypse.
Yeah.
And that's kind of my next song coming out in March.
Oh, nice. but I think where I'm coming from with that is
rather than God, like most apocalyptic battles, this is this other part of the vampire replicant saga. Most apocalyptic battles take place where God defeats Satan. Well, this is where Satan dies, or God dies, and then we're just sitting here waiting like, what do we do? We lost everything. So it's really truly apocalypse. Like, it's dark and deep, and it's sad.
You're kind of left with relying upon the angels of humanity's greater nature.
Yep. And it's also telling my story about war, where God dies in your soul during war, because you're left to do horrible things or see horrible things with your friends over there. So
yeah,
so it's a metaphor,
and you kind of have to figure out what the greater good really is.
Yep. Yeah, when I was on a rooftop in Fallujah, sitting with a bunch of Muslim dudes that I didn't know, I gave one of them my knives, and then they gave me one of their artifacts as well. And I'm like, I don't know what the difference between our God is, honestly, because we're both loving human beings, and we're both fighting the same enemy. And that enemy over there is probably just as scared as I am.
Mm-hmm.
And these Muslim dudes on the roof with me right now are just as scared as those dudes, and they're just as scared as I am. Or they're not.
But they are.
Yeah.
That's the thing, but they are. I guessing the way my father had put it to me was when, they would come into, I guess, the Tet Offensive would be a good example.
We studied a lot of that in the Marine Corps.
Tet 68.
Yep.
They're walking through. All has been said and done. There's no free fire going on. It's all over. And they're looking at the bodies of Charlie. And his first sergeant said to him, these people, you're never going to see a better person on earth than these people. And they were the enemy.
I agree. I could finally say that after years that I agree. Because they did kill people in our company.
Yeah.
But like, I don't even know what to say anymore, actually. That's hard.
Because they're you.
Yeah, they're just me on the other side.
Yeah. They didn't choose it. That wasn't their first choice.
Right.
Their first choice could have been anything: musician, artist, chef. Who knows? Who knows what they were into? But the way the cards dropped, they got an automatic weapon put in their hands.
Yep.
So your battleground now is not Fallujah. It's not with an automatic weapon in your hand. It is not in the Marine Corps. It is you're armed with music. And the battleground is the human soul. and the weaponry is notes and compositions.
Yeah. I like doing it.
It's no different, except the end product, you get to win people over instead of hurting them.
Yep. I like that idea.
I hope I'm right anyway.
There's a semblance of truth to that. I'd rather win people over than hurt them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the whole point of anti-war. I'm not a pacifist.
No,
right?
but the music you make is protest music, in my opinion.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to come from a place of pacifism.
Yep.
It has to come from a place of understanding and empathy.
Yep.
That's different than pacifism. That's understanding.
Yeah. This is a good talk.
I agree. But I to be fair, I was raised by a combat veteran and a soldier, so
yeah,
I understand. Even though
I'll work on those things with my son, though, and thinking about what you said about him, that was nice.
Yeah,
because you have the experience of someone that was raised by someone like me.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you know what I mean.
Yeah, so, yeah. I mean, shit. Every time there was,
I am your father. No, I'm not in a Luke sense.
Not in a Luke sense, but in a a grander sense. I mean,
yeah.
Every time I grew up in a town where there was an airport right up the road, so every time the air show came through, Dad was hiding under the kitchen table, shaking. So I mean, offering a greater understanding to the children that are in your stead, it's invaluable. And instead of hiding it or pretending it doesn't exist, it's better to face it with them and invite them in.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, this was a lot heavier than I thought it was going to be, and I knew it was going to be heavy.
I didn't know what to expect.
I knew we were going to have a great conversation. I mean, I don't invite people on lightly. You know what I mean? I it's not that I vet people in a very discerning way specifically, but I kind of catch a vibe from the way people operate, and that's what informs my decision making. And I'd gotten the vibe that this was going to go down similar to the way it went down.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you for having me on.
I appreciate you coming on, and I am, a very, very big fan of what you do, and I can't wait to hear what you do next.
I think you'll like it. I hope so.
I'm quite sure.
I want to please people like you, honestly, because you listen to a lot of the same music I do, so that's my goal.
Yeah.
Yep. And
hopefully it speaks to a broader audience than weirdos like myself.
Right. That's the goal.
Yep.
All right, man.
All right, brother.
How do we end this?
Just like
like a normal conference call?
Just like a normal conference call.
All right. Have a good night.
You too, my friend.
All right. Talk to you later.
See ya.
All right, folks. That was my interview with Tim from Zuneg, where we foretold the war between the Ukraine and Russia. Not the Ukrainian part, but the Russian part. Obviously, as evidenced from our conversation, Tim has seen a lot of different sides of humanity that most of us who've not served in the military have seen. This one ran long, as a lot of mine tend to, but we got a lot done. We really examined what it's like to be a veteran, a single father, an activist, a protest songwriter, and we got to the bottom of a lot of things. And we had a lot of laughs along the way. I'd like to thank you all for tuning in, sticking around, putting up with my very nasal-sounding voice right now, as I'm not feeling the best. So thank you. From 3:33 a.m. Studios, he's been Tim. I've been Peter. You've been great. This has been the Book of Very, Very Bad Things podcast. Have a great night, everyone.
this party.